Welcome back to Nice Try for the fans, by the fans. This is me, Elle, and
What do you do?
there he is. It's Timothy Josh. Tim, what a weekend. I'm not talking about anything other than the Springboks. I gave myself a time. It was fun. I know there's lots to say, there's lots to learn from, and sure, it wasn't Wales' top performing side and blah blah blah. I had fun watching the Springboks. What about you?
Yeah, it was a very entertaining match. A little teary-eyed seeing our captain return, so that was beautiful to see. And then he didn't put up a rusty performance. He put a very dominant performance, which bodes well for the World Cup. I mean, we play free-flowing rugby. Like you said, it isn't a Welsh team that we were fearing much from, but we expected to dominate, and that's exactly what we did. So I think just from that standpoint, we came, we saw, we conquered, and so
absolutely.
Yeah, it was fine.
And we'll go into a lot more details later, have a full breakdown, if you will. But before we get there, last week we invited you, the listener, to share with us your picks as we build the all-time greatest Springbok lineup. Our picks were the obvious choices, really. For us, it was Oosturant and the Beast leading the way with the props. We did mention Yanni just as an honorable mention, but those were our picks for that position. And we heard from you, and we're hearing you. Thank you so much for your input. We heard from Ricky, who chose Kitshoff. Stephen Kitshoff, Tim. He chose Kitshoff. He says that he is excellent in defense. He's a true leader, and there's no one like him when it comes to the ruck and those turnover balls. Do you agree with this take that Kitshoff could be in the making? Could he be 10 years from now one of the greatest props South Africa has had?
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout. Stoff has been a stalwart in the World Cup winning team. There's just very little that you can point to that's a weak point of his game, and he does provide that added presence in the ruck, a threat for turnover balls. So that is something I would say he's probably more mobile than Os. And he's got a World Cup medal under his belt. So if he wins another one, he would have a very strong case. I just maybe point out that with Os being there, I think we just haven't had sort of that dominance. It might be that Steven's coming up with very prominent props in World Rugby, so he definitely has a case. I mean, Frans Malhope is another shout as well. Would also be a two-time winner if he is able to finish the job. So those two as a pair, I mean, that they've got that going for them as well. I think their win percentage as a pairing is fairly high.
We actually had another listener, JC, who wanted the combo of Os and Frans Malherbe. Now, imagine if we could go back in time, or Os could come forward in time, or there was a way to see that in action.
The Springboks might just knock balls on, deliberately just to get the scrum penalty.
Don't give them any ideas. But yes, some other mentions we had lots of agreements in terms of Os, and then we also had lots of votes for the future, really, with even Vincent Cox getting a mention. Dare say he's probably the only one I hesitate to put in the company of these greats, but I might just be be too strict.
That seems a bit of a out of field pick.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes these players are victim to the time that they come up. He's surrounded, or he was competing against Kitshoff, and obviously Province went one way and then Koch went to England, and so he obviously hasn't had as much exposure, but he plays a very vital role in the Springbok squad. You don't see a dramatic drop, but obviously Kitshoff is I think it's a different class of player, and I think that the legacy still remains. Kitshoff has also done very well on the Stormers level, so club level. He's also produced the goods. So
thank you for your input, and keep those coming. You can send an email, bsgproductions@outlook.com, or find us on Twitter, also known as X, and you can find us at Nice Try for Fans. That's where you can send your picks to, and a little later on, we will tackle the hooker position, the number 2s. This is
Yeah,
a
this
trick.
one's-
This is tough. This is tough, and
tough.
I feel like a disagreement is bubbling, but we will leave that leave that for now. But you touched on it earlier. Sia Khaleesi, our captain, he was back for the Springboks after 119 days. If I decided to live under a rock for 119 days and did not know that he was injured and out, had surgery, I would not have believed you had you told me he hasn't played. He hasn't been competitive in Seoul. I would not have believed you. He looked even better than before. Can we say that?
But definitely, I was really shocked at his performance. Like you said, if you hadn't known what had transpired over these last 119 days, you would think he was picking up form. I hesitate to say, but he was not looking as good as he was. And maybe it is a thing of, you don't know what you have until it's gone. And so we're just not used to seeing him on the field. And so what he brings, we kind of see like, wow, we actually missed this. Because he is a unique player. Seeing him out on the wing, out wide, that was a sort of a critique that was levied against him. But now it just changes our game. It just, we have so many more options. And in the contact, I just recall that charge down tackle. He was chasing the fullback, the Welsh fullback, tackled him, great tackle, and stopped what could have been a potential try opportunity. My heart was very warm by his performance, and you can see what he means to the squad as well. Even before preparation, before they were doing the anthem, how everyone was, high-fiving, and the spirit seemed like he really is the leader that everyone respects, and they have his best interest, and they know that he is vital to the success of the team. So it was beautiful to see, and I'm happy. I'm just wanting to wrap him up in cotton wool.
Yes.
But we'll see how he does against the All Blacks.
After that magical offload that sent Malcolm Marx over the try line, I was good. I was like, okay, thanks, you're back. Wrap him up, hide him, and yet
Exactly.
he is leading the team come Friday 25th against the old foe. Couldn't we just take a break? And yeah, we'll get into the team against New Zealand a little later on. But there were some moments in that Welsh match where I was just like, okay, we've seen enough. Take them off. Protect them. Those hits, no, that's too much. Where's the line? Is there anything we can do? How do we protect these players? How do we make sure that they're safe and they're okay come World Cup? When does something mean less? I'm seeing a lot of that sentiment on social media, but is there any way around it? Aren't you supposed to kind of play at your best against the best so that you can be your best when it counts?
Obviously, the anxiety levels are quite high because, these two teams, there's no blood loss between them. Like you said, there is a fine balance because you do want to measure yourself up against the best. This would be a decent team that we are putting out. It's not as if we, testing new things. Oh, we'll get to the testing. But in terms of our forwards, at least, it's a very strong Springbok pack. We know that the All Blacks are going to put up a front. That first 20 minutes, they ran us out of the park. Really, and so it will be good to have a nice parameter to see if we are on that level. And this is where I will give, like I said last week, the benefit of the doubt to the coaching team. They clearly knew because people were, questioning them on their selection for injured players and saying, well, Sia hasn't played, so why is he in the team? And we can clearly see why he's in the team. So yeah, I'm going to trust them. They are experts at load management and looking at our players' work rates and the amount of work that they're undergoing. So hopefully the All Blacks as well, their eyes on the final prize, and so we don't see sort of any nastiness, which I did feel like there was sort of element in the Welsh game where certain tackles which I would think were borderline, and so I hope that isn't the case on Friday.
Before we take an even closer look at some of those key points from that Welsh match, and there are many, I want to talk about Jesse Kriel and his performance. Sometimes he gets talked about in a negative way, and he gets criticized a lot, but I feel like he really rose up and he got everyone to quiet down a bit with his performance on Saturday, when defensively and also on attack, organization, being there for everyone. He did it exceptionally well. Of course, I want to talk about the man of the match, Kanan Moody, who will be moving to 13 come Friday night, which you actually spoke about when the team was announced. But we won't get into that right away. Just have it in the back of your mind. And then, of course, I want to talk about Manie Libbok. People are talking about him, some for the right reasons, coming to his defense, and others criticizing him because of his kicking stats. But we'll cover all of that in just a bit. But first, news around the world. The review bunker. This new system that's been tested where yellow cards can change to red cards. World Rugby, they're saying that this is to eliminate wasting of time. You know, often it's on the field, the referee has to look and relook and relook and look again at video footage before they decide whether a card is red or yellow. So this is trying to eliminate that time wasting. And so they've decided that the review bunker is going to be part of the World Cup. And then also the shot clock will also be part of the World Cup. That's the visible clock where players and fans can see the 90-second countdown for conversions to be taken by the kicker and 60 seconds for penalties to be taken by the kicker. Your thoughts?
I know they trialed it in the Currie Cup as well. There were definitely cases where, the time at least ran out, and it seemed like the referees were very hesitant. So I'm waiting and hoping that that doesn't become a point of contention. In terms of the spirit of the law, I agree things should be sped up, and I'm keen to see how it will affect certain kickers. I know Dan Bigger's got quite a sort of lengthy process before his kicks, and we know Manie also took quite a while before kicking. So we'll see how they can adjust to that rule, and I think it does make for a more entertaining spectacle because we aren't wasting so much time, waiting for no actions really happening. And then with the review bunker, I think that's a perfectly reasonable addition, and it will help. It's annoying to listen to refs deliberate if something deserved to be a red card or a yellow card. And so I think that it's going to end up in more time on the field, which I think is what we all want to see. And I think it's going to play a sort of unwitting tactical battle because, sometimes people might be under the cosh. They get the yellow card, but then you usually see that team that has a man down is able to still hold out because they have this whole period, while the rest is deliberating, they can catch their breath. And so it kind of, you will really get an advantage, I feel, with this yellow card because it will be sped up. And so there's no time to sort of catch up. And so it'll be interesting to see how those two things play out.
You can share your takes as well. Find us on Twitter at NiceTry4Fans. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to learn from you. As Tim said in our first episode, we've all been watching for different lengths of time. We've experienced different teams, different players, different referees, different styles, different laws, and so we'd love to learn from you. Some other news, some more teams have been announced for the World Cup. For me, the biggest takeouts are just players who are injured and still included in the World Cup squad. Firstly, with the French, their flanker, Anthony Geelong, he has a very serious knee injury, but Coach Galfi, he says that he will be ready mid-September. Mid-September is second round of pool matches?
Yeah, should be about there.
What do you make of that? I mean, the Welsh, they've also named a couple of players who are just coming off injury, but then you have Tonga, who excluded Israel Folau because of injury. I wish I could just, be a fly on the wall and figure out what's the thinking behind these strategies. You mentioned that Jacques Nienaber has these stages or these phases. What was it? Can you teach us?
He said there were three sort of groups that he has players that aren't in the official squad. It will be the ready-to-go players, which would be those that are eligible for substitution should an injury arise. But in that group, they will be ready to train, which means that the player will be then training with the team. He put Lucanio in that group, and then he said ready to play. And he said Andre is in that group, so that is quite encouraging for the Springbok team. And he sort of emphasized, that it's entirely possible that they can make the squad.
Oh.
He would always, couch his answer with saying, "Well, you never know." He said it was 10 weeks. Anything can happen in 10 weeks, and so
Sure.
I definitely think they obviously have the most insight into the readiness of the players. And what he's saying is it's not something that is impossible to happen. Jesse Creel, Trevor Nyakani, both had to be replaced at the last World Cup very early as well. So it's entirely possible that we might see Andre. And I know there's obviously many people that are excited for that prospect. But he did emphasize, as things stand, the group that they announced is the group that they will be taking. So we need to, back the boys and, trust the management.
Mm-hmm.
And the nice to haves will be there.
So maybe something like that's happening. Maybe these teams, the French and the Welsh, and they have a system like this in place as well. Who knows? We'll just have to wait and see. Let me look back at some of the results from the weekend, because lots of teams were playing, and please stop me if there's anything that stood out to you that you want to talk about. I'll start with France-Fiji. France beating Fiji 34 points to 17. Italy being not on the receiving end of a 50-pointer this time, because if I told you Italy was involved in a match and the winner won by 50, you'd just assume they were the losers, right? No, not this time. They beat Romania 57 points to 7. Well done to Italy. And then the Irish beat England 29 to 10. Anything outstanding from those matches before we get into the main event?
Italy have really developed a couple of really exciting players. Capuzzo is one of the informed players. He's returned from injury recently, and he immediately made his mark. Romania is sort of, they are underrated team, especially in their set pieces. Some might say they have one of the strongest scrums in the World Cup. So for Italy to, endure that and still put up 50 points is quite impressive. France was pretty much a reserve team, and they still got the job done. So they are favorites for a reason. Their depth is unbelievable, and their players are really playing well. They're playing some good rugby, and obviously home ground advantage is something to consider. But I can't look past, what we did on the weekend. I think we are the sort of standout result, just in terms of what we accomplished.
So clinical.
Yeah, I think there were two tries that were denied of being held up over the line as well. So, and then we're not even talking about all the missed conversions and penalties. Our overall performance, we really, were handsome in our win, considering the opposition. Ireland and England,
Yeah, come on, let's take a moment there. Another red card, though. Are they being taught to play this way? In the news today, Andy Farrell was talking about how he wants Ireland to be well disciplined, because I guess coming off of that match against England, which was just a little ugly at times, he's going in knowing that this is something that needs to be an area of focus. But what's the point if you're working on your discipline, but your opposition, they're almost getting away with murder?
Yeah, I just recall that Rassi video, where he was teaching essays and the tackle technique. It seems like you don't want to cause dispersions and say it's, a dirty team, but it might be just a technical lack of understanding, especially surrounding the new rules and how referees are, interpreting collisions particularly, to make sure that you are getting down in the tackle, that you're not upright. So it's these small technical things that does make a difference. I'm not sure if it is something that's being emphasized in training, but it will be an issue. It will definitely cost the team quite dearly. So discipline and tackle technique is going to be very much highlighted. We've seen a very strong emphasis on collisions of any kind to the head, and so if you are lacking in that particular area, you won't be going far in this World Cup, I'm afraid.
enough of them. Let's get to the good stuff. The Springboks. Last time around, we talked about how this could be a very physical match, and you said no, not necessarily, because everyone's being careful before the World Cup and we're going to see a bland match. And we're like, yeah, we want a bland match, blah, blah. What did we get?
Yeah, I need to eat some crow there because, well, I will preface it by saying that I was expecting a bit of a different Welsh team.
Mm-hmm.
But once I saw the team announced, I honestly thought we would definitely put up 40 points.
Yeah.
I didn't think that was too far, especially for the team that we put out. And I mean, they did exactly that. From start to finish, 24 points scored in the first 28. So, very comprehensive, very dominant in every facet. I can't think of any spell where the Welsh had, some sort of ascendancy. It seemed like they were always on the back foot. The Springboks really showed their class. It bodes well. I'm really excited. I typically am afraid to sort of get very hyped up about the results like this because I think it is something that was expected. The way they went about it, you're sort of seeing the glimmers of that Springbok quality in terms of precision. We're obviously lacking with goal kicking, but in terms of our scrums, our scrum looked really powerful. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that in particular, but the scrums, the mauls, the lineouts, the set pieces in particular were really great. We struggled a bit under the high ball, but we adjusted in the second half and it wasn't as much of a threat. Yeah, start to finish, every single player put their hand up and just a really, really, really encouraging performance.
I'm always encouraged when, and I know that they're fondly named the Bomb Squad. What I love about those set pieces is that there's no real drop-off when replacements are made. You can't pick one over the other, and that applies to all set pieces, but I also really like the moves. When you're watching, you can kind of tell that's from the training ground, and I think Sia also talked about his assist for Malcolm Marcus try, and he said that that's something that they've practiced. It's not magic, it's training, it's investment, it's working together, it's communication, it's understanding, it's reading. He also lauded Willie Leroux for knowing where to put the ball when, and that gets me excited because it speaks to preparation and it also speaks to those elements that got us to win 2019, where they would study the opposition and they'd know different moves that they could use, and they'd also study certain parts of play regardless of opposition, but what they could do and who would be, I love how prepared they are and how things look magic, or it's kind of like what we have in theatre when something is completely improvised, but it's actually taken so much planning and so much preparation beforehand, and that makes for some beautiful, beautiful rugby to watch.
I think, what is the saying? The best make it look easy.
Yeah.
And just in terms of the defending as well, we had 2 intercept tries. These things don't just occur spontaneously. They obviously knew what Wales would do in certain situations. And Keenan, I think he's shown now, even in the Argentina match, how he's reading, the play. And so I think it bodes well for him at 13, especially defensively. Yeah, it's like you said, you can see that there's structure. There's sort of a plan that's developing, because you'll see them, probe one side and say, okay, this isn't working, and they'll change their structure, look for something else. And it's really exciting to see, because, these are professionals, and you can really see that they're putting in the effort, and there's been effort that was, expended into when they run into the field. It's not just these random 15 guys.
You say the best to make it look easy. Kanan moving to 13. Is he going to make it look easy? Is it fair to be moving him to 13 for the first time at this level against the likes of Ricky Ioane? Like, what's your expectations around that move? And great for building him, and you've already talked about how he is able to do this. He has the skills for it. Defensively, he knows how to organize. But now, against New Zealand, a week before the World Cup,
Yeah, I watched Rassi's squad announcement and the interviews, sort of the questions afterwards, and he mentioned that Caden actually played 13, during his school career. Obviously, it's not the same level, but he clearly had exposure to the position and, the demands of it and how it differs from the wing. And then, like I said, he has shown that he can not marshal the defense line, but at least be someone that can assist in defending well as, the back line and how the structure that they want. So my feeling is fairly benign. I really have no anxiety. I'm really excited to see how him and Esther isn't get along.
yeah.
And I think it's a perfect time because there's no real pressure necessarily.
There's no pressure, it's only New Zealand.
Yeah, in the one sense, you're going up against the best. So if you have a bad game, people will be way more forgiving.
Oh.
For example, if you had to play against Wales, we're not really expecting, it's not their starting centers. People might have been inclined to have a higher bar for him. And so he's still coming with that great form from the wing. We should recognize that it's an experiment. International level is a cut above, and so we should be patient. But from the sort of inclinations and what is shown in his talent and his abilities, I think that it will be something that is going to be fruitful, at least in the long term. And it might be something that, produces aerial alternative that will be a game changer for the Bok team at least. So I'm excited. I'm really excited for him. I'm happy for him. I don't know if anyone's seen the lockdown training videos of him with a tire.
If you haven't, go check it out. Be inspired.
Kurtley was also in the interview, and he was mentioning that he's a very sort of determined fella, and apparently he had whispers, or he was at least talking about how he can't wait to get this opportunity. So seemingly this man has had a plan from the beginning, and so hopefully he grabs it with both hands.
I'm excited to see us share your enthusiasm, wishing him well and supporting him all the way, because that's what we're here to do. You've said it before, and I'm sure you'll say it again and again. We have to trust the leadership. We have to trust the coaches. They know what they're doing. They know what they're trying. And of course, with Jessie being the only specialist 13 at the moment, it doesn't hurt getting Kanan ready and settled in that position should we need him. Any other elements of the match that you're looking forward to? Looking ahead to New Zealand, as we're recording now, the New Zealanders have not yet mentioned named their lineup, but it's New Zealand. Does it matter who they field? It's going to be tough. It's going to be heavies versus heavies. There's no easy New Zealand team.
Yeah, you are 100% correct. New Zealand could, list their third string team, and it would be a formidable squad. I think the way I see them also set up this New Zealand team, I know France and especially Dwayne are sort of defensive organizers in the team. And we might see them taking up a greater role in that line, and so Kanan, I don't think will have that burden on himself. I mean, Estes is a very capable defender. He just hasn't had that exposure, so it will be nice to see if he can sort of guide Kanan. I'm excited to see how that goes. For the rest, we've seen most of these players. See our second game, so it will be interesting to see how that goes. Was he just running off adrenaline, on his return, or is this the legit return of the king?
Stop. I don't appreciate that sentiment at all.
And even seeing the front row, and they've gone with Kitshoff, Marks, and Malherbe. And to see what it will look like when Bongi, Trevor, and Ox come on. To see, like you said, we haven't seen that drop. Hopefully it stays that way. Then really all of our front row is interchangeable for me. That's massive. Yeah, I think short of honorable mention for a performance was Jean Klein.
Hello.
He's sort of gone under the radar, but he's really doing the grunt work, and I mean he's imposed himself on the line. Erge gave away, I think it was 2 penalties, crossing. And Jean really, he really put up his hand to, partner with Eben, but it's nice to see him bed so quickly into the team. And that's why when I talk about the trust and how things are sort of so interchangeable, everyone knows what is expected of them. There's a clear defined team structure. And I think with Mani, as you know, as much as people are pointing towards his shortcomings, what he is providing is something that we haven't seen in a Springbok team.
Oh, so special.
Sort of, this guile, and I think he was involved in quite a bit of really enterprising attacking play, and so it'll be interesting to see him lead a inexperienced centre pairing. That's going to be interesting, as well as Kurtley and Damien, to see how they get along, because Willie won't be there to sort of pull the strings. Yeah, I'm hoping to see them really put up a good show. Like you said, All Blacks never easy.
Can we take just a quick moment for Pieter-Steph du Toit? Last World Cup year, he was Player of the Year, and rightly so. And I'd vote for him again and again and again, even though the last few years, I mean, he's had some serious injury trouble with his back. But seeing him perform this entire season, really, I don't think he gets enough credit.
Yeah, it's only a matter of time for Pieter-Steph, to finally unveil himself. He's really got some minutes under his belt, and once he gets going, he is quite a unstoppable force. And you can even see the growth in his play. Maybe in previous years, you would have attempted to, go for that try line, but Ed was always on the pivot to look for support players, and even the effort to continue with Jesse.
Beautiful.
The game is out. The game is already won, and you see the dedication. Yeah, Pieter-Steph being who he is, it's such a weight. I'm sure Sia, knowing that he might not have been, returning, or he can relax knowing that, Pieter-Steph is like a rock, and we can really be grateful that he's coming into form, like you said. And so it will be nice to see him really step up, as we know he can. Proved himself over and over.
Of course, the Boks face New Zealand at Twickenham. New Zealand will be the home side for this one. So it's New Zealand versus South Africa on Friday at Twickenham. That's the big one. That's the pick for me. But other matches going on. Spain versus Argentina. Interesting. England will take on Fiji. Scotland up against Georgia. Something I'm looking forward to. Italy versus Japan.
Ooh.
Any thoughts?
Yeah. That's going to be an attacking sort of masterclass.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be one for the attacking purists. I think Japan typically very innovative in some of the sets that they run. They launched something very unique in the 2019 World Cup, so it'll be interesting. I think they might obviously play their cards close to their chest just before World Cup, but Italy as well, never afraid to throw the ball around. I think, like you said, Springboks All Blacks will obviously be, the pick of the matches. There is France and Australia on Sunday as well. That might be interesting to see how the Aussies go as well.
Hopefully some injuries. Sorry. I said it, you were thinking it. And then also Ireland, Samoa. That's another tough one. I was saving those for last.
The Samoa team is really interesting to see what they will be producing with these, not long-standing players, but players of immense quality. So it'll be really interesting to see what they can put together. I would like to actually maybe keep a keen eye on Fiji as well, especially against the England team that, like I said, just doesn't inspire much confidence.
Yeah,
we know the Fijians are masters at sort of broken play, and yes, England don't have much of a structure, so it could get quite ugly for them.
Hopefully. Anyway, okay, so those are the upcoming matches, and of course we will review them in episode 3. Now, our final feature for today, we are building the all-time greatest Springbok lineup, and in this episode we are looking at hookers. Now, we talked about us being here to edutain and learn from each other. So for those who are not in the know, The hooker wears the number 2 jersey, and they have great responsibility at set piece time. That's in the scrum. But then also the line out. They're the one who they throw the ball into the line out. Okay, for those of you who are not familiar, that's who we're talking about today. And I mean, I might be wrong, but the name hooker, from what I know, came from because the scrum half places the ball into the scrum, the hooker is the one who uses their foot to kind of hook the ball to make sure it comes out on their side. That might just have been a way that I tried to understand it for myself. Or it could actually be the true origin of the word, well, of the name. But yeah, those of you who know better, please do let us know if you have an alternate explanation. Who's your pick this week?
When I was thinking about viable candidates, one name stuck out to me.
I'm actually nervous.
I would say this is a legacy pick.
Okay.
Just purely based on there are some contenders that could, dethrone this particular player.
Okay.
I can't look past John Smith.
Okay.
I was here before Sia. We shouldn't look past his captaincy, being very, vital for a sort of golden era for Springbok rugby. I would say he fell out of favor, or people didn't recognize the worth of what he brought to the table due to us trying to, fit him in with Bismarck and moving him around. There isn't a time where I can point to John Smith's lineouts being an issue. I think that's just a fact. What he did as a hooker, he did exceptionally well, and what he did as a captain, he did exceptionally well. And I think that would be my pick. I said they are, contenders for future Springbok to displacing him. But as a captain, unless there's going to be another Springbok captain that has a repertoire similar to him, I just can't look past John Smith. So that will be my pick. I'm really interested to hear yours.
This is a really tough one for me because I am a huge fan of John Smith, and I agree with you and everything that you've said 100%. And also something that I don't know if we take for granted as fans, but the relationship between coach and captain, it's so important. And what Sia had with Rassie and what he appears to have with Jacques Nienaber as well, John Smith had that with Jake White. And 2003 was not a nice time, and Smith, he was young and he was coming up, but you could see the leadership there. And Jake White, of course, also recognized that, and that was it. 2004, we won that Tri-Nations. 2007, the World Cup. Everything, it was written in the stars. It was perfection. It was technical. It's almost weird and crazy to think that there could even be competition for him in this little this team of ours. But if you take leadership aside, and if you just look at the player, the superhuman, Bismarck du Plessis is just something else. I know you mentioned the line out, and Smith, yes, reliable, but there is just something, and we see it now in Malcolm Marx as well. There's something about that hooker in the ruck, those turnover balls, and it's actually something that I enjoy about Dion Fourie as well. There's I don't know. Bismarck has my vote this time, and maybe I'm stressing it because you went with John Smith, and for the sake of presenting two options. I don't know if it's that. I know that we can talk about his discipline at times, and that's probably just something that was in his genes because his brother offered the same challenge. But he was incredible when you think about the 2009 series with the Lions. And also against teams like the All Blacks, he makes the opposition nervous, and
Definitely.
I enjoy that. I enjoy that about a player. And of course, he has that same medal as John Smith, so they're equal in terms of silverware. very close anyway. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna give him my vote this time.
Yeah, I think the fact that they tried to move John Smith, to a different position sort of is a testament to how good Bismarck was at hooker. Even his, like you said, his work in the ruck is phenomenal. And that element, like we think of our 2009, 2007 Springbok team, there were certain unsavory elements, but people were, I would say, genuinely afraid to play the Springboks. And he was one of the reasons Iman Bakis.
Oh, don't even. That. Hey. Yeah. Don't get ahead of yourself now. But yes, just mentioning that move, I didn't actually want to mention it because for me that played in John Smith's favor. As a leader, they were willing to experiment, if you will, or like move him, but retain him. So that spoke to his leadership and his presence on the field. So I guess it is a compliment to both of those players. But those are our picks, Bismarck du Plessis and John Smith. We'd love to hear your thoughts and your picks. I will remind you that Twitter handle Nice Try for Fans and bsgproductions@outlook.com. That's where you can send your thoughts to, or of course you can include it in your comments on the podcast below. So whatever you do, however you do it, we'd love to hear from you. That brings us to the end of this episode. So much that we've covered. Tim, thank you so much. Your input, your insight, magnificent as always.
Well, thank you all. It's been always nice to have a show after a performance like that. So hopefully we won't be too much of a down after Friday. But yeah, it's, what is it, 17, 18 days left for the World Cup. Things are really starting to pick up. We can see a lot of Springbok jerseys in the malls and,
Draai ding,
Springbok.
as Lonnie says.
Yeah, so it's really exciting to sort of share this journey. And like Al said, we really are looking sort of for interaction, and so to encourage the listeners to get involved and, like she said, educate us where we are lacking. It is a community thing, so hoping to get some input.
Until then, this is Nice Try for the fans, by the fans.